What up, family? Welcome back to Rise Urban Nation, where we unite, uplift, and ignite stories shaping our communities and our future. Today's conversation is one that lives at the intersection of motherhood, grief, courage, and movement building. It starts with a mother watching the world change and realizing that, while she saw brilliance, innocence, and joy in her sons, the world might see something very different. Our guest today is Anaya. Me and Anaya go back like beans and pacifiers. I just had to do that. It was in my head. It was in my head.
All good.
Founder of Our Kings. Go ahead. What you gonna say? No, no,
I said,
go ahead, go ahead. You jump in, jump in, jump in.
I'll say you did it again. It's Anya.
Ah, you know what it is? I just wanted to be Anaya.
Right.
Because in my head it just rhymes very well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I get that.
You figured I would get it right on the second.
Second
You figure I
round.
get it right on the second time around, right?
Yes. All good.
I gotta find something else that rhymes. I gotta find something else that rhymes with Anya. What rhymes with it? Give me something that
Tanya.
rhymes, and then
Ta-
that'll help me solidify it. I don't know. We'll
Tanya.
figure this. Anya, Tanya. But it don't have to
Thought.
say like, oh, okay. Now I'm thinking of Cool J songs now. I like, but it ain't flowing the right way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I heard
But
that a
back
lot
to
when I
the
was
intro.
younger.
You heard that a lot when you was younger. My girl Anya, founder of Our Kings, a nonprofit and community movement dedicated to nurturing, protecting, and empowering Black boys, and supporting the families raising them. What began as, I believe, a small meetup born out of fear and love has grown into a powerful ecosystem of mentorship, education, cultural enrichment, and belonging. Anya, welcome to Rise Urban Nation, and thanks
Thank
for
you.
um dealing with me and messing up your name for a second time around because I want to
It's all
rhyme it
good.
with a song.
All good. I appreciate you having me. All good.
Yeah, first and foremost, uh, for everybody getting the visual experience, show them the hoodie. Show them the hoodie. That's dope. That's a dope hoodie right there. Show them the hoodie, little look real quick. Like,
These are the ones that
what can I get me the All Kings hoodie?
I owe you some gear. I do. I owe you some merch for sure. These are the ones our boys wear. It says
Like,
I
I'll
am.
gladly just go on the site and purchase it because
We're
this
actually getting that
I
together.
haven't seen this one yet.
This is a new one for our boys. So it says I am the mission, and then the parents wear I believe in the mission. So this is a new one that we have.
Ooh, okay, all right. I tell you, when I saw you and the boys at the MLK parade, they was on point. Y'all was out there stunting.
Thank
Y'all was looking good. And so I was jealous I didn't have a T-shirt, but I'm gonna get one by about time next year rolling around, one way or
Yes,
another.
absolutely, absolutely. You got to come and do
All right,
a thing with them, like a workshop. We always give our guests a T-shirt that says "I believe in the mission." So for sure,
absolutely. You just tell me when to pull up. I'm pulling up.
absolutely, I got you for sure.
So I want I appreciate that. And I want to get into before Our Kings became a nonprofit, before it was a movement, it began with you as a mother. So take us back to that moment in 2014
Yeah,
when the world shifted for you as a mother of Black boys. Give me that story.
yeah. So in 2014, Michael Brown's killing for my boys, it was the beginning of them realizing how society sees African American boys. They were very. I had two boys at that time, and they were very young, and what they were seeing on the news and in places that they were at, they just were shown that they didn't matter. And so they this is one of them. I need you to go, okay? I'm in an interview.
Hey.
Yep. So my two older boys now at that time were my younger boys. They were in a space where society was showing them that their lives didn't matter. As we all know, Michael Brown was laying on the street for over 8 hours, where his family couldn't go and cover him up or nurture him or go touch him or anything like that. And it was all witness for us to see. And they just kind of realized the seriousness of it. And they were very afraid for anyone um, around them, any male around them, to be outside because they didn't know what was happening. Because shortly after, we all know Trayvon Martin passed away, and so many other boys were murdered. Actually, so many other boys were murdered, and for them, it just was the beginning of the reality of that stage. So. For me as a mom or any parent, you would understand the heartbreak that that brought to me. Them being scared to go to school, go play outside, just be normal children. And I went searching for programs and looking for places for them to connect with other boys so they could just be kids and not have that weight that the world puts out of them at a young age. And I could not find that. So we just kind of created a meetup group for them just to play. And we just kind of went to different parks where they could just hang out and enjoy being children. And that's how it started. And the unique thing that came about was there were so many mothers that weren't African American, raising African American boys and saying, you know, I've seen this world, but now I'm a part of this world. And how do I nurture my boy? And how do I support him in this space? Because the schools don't care, the police don't care. You know, no one's caring about my child but me. And I know my child is a good person, but yet everybody's telling him that he's not. So how do I support him, and how do we support the families in this space? So that's how it started back in 2014 with just 10 boys hanging out every weekend, just kicking it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's and thank you for creating that space. I'm curious, what were like some of the questions your sons were asking during that time that made you realize something had to change?
Yeah. One of the big things, there was multiple things like not wanting to go to school. You kind of notice all these things as a parent, not wanting to go to school, not really feeling comfortable. Like if they before they would ride their bikes outside in the front yard and they were like, Mom, can you go outside with me? You know, just little things like that were starting to come about. But then we was taking a trip to go visit my brother who lives in LA, and we was all in the car and we got stopped because the police were doing like they're just doing like a stop. You know how sometimes they stop traffic. And so they came to the car and they both just started screaming with fear because my dad was driving at the time and my other brother and his family were in the car because we all carpooled together. And that was the moment where I said, I need to do something because they can't go on living life this way. Like they were crying, they were afraid. The police had to come
Mm,
around and talk to them and tell them, I'm not here to hurt you. Like it was a real scene, and it was a realization for me as a parent, like this is not okay. I have to do something to make them
yeah.
feel okay. Yeah.
Nah, nah, because I imagine, even for me as a black male during that period when all of this was happening, seeing way too many black men being unalive, it creates your own trauma and lack of psychological safety, physical safety, and so forth. And so I can only imagine what it's like for these little boys, these young men, and what they were going through. Um, I want to go back because that first meetup. Every time I hear this story, I really love hearing it from you. Like you did this small meetup. What happened? What came together when you put that first small meetup together? And what surprised you most about who showed up?
What surprised me most about who showed up were mothers that were not African American. I think
Mm,
it wasn't meant to be a black mom, black boy space ever. That wasn't my thought process. It was just literally, my kids want to go outside. How do I have them around other black boys where they feel safe, people that look like them? And when other mothers, Asian, Hispanic, white mothers came, Caucasian mothers came, it was a reality that this is bigger than me, and something's bringing us together in this moment, and it's our children. And so for me, that
mhm,
was that was a big surprise. And then for them to feel so comfortable with me asking me the questions that they were asking, like, my son is going through this too. How do I handle it? Many of them were like, this is again something I saw on TV or something you hear about from Black people, but now I'm experiencing this because my son is living this, or my husband is living this, or, we just live a different life. Like, we are always reminded that we are African American people in a place that does not want us, unfortunately, to rise up. And so when you're of a different race, you don't think of it as frequent as we do. But here are mothers having to realize something that they never had to think about. And so for me, that was the most surprising thought, was they were coming to me and trusting me to answer those
Mhm.
questions for them, when I was never on the path to, like, I want to be a leader or an advocate for this. It was just like, my son is sad and I need to fix this.
Yeah, and sometimes you're kind of thrown into leadership. You go on this journey trying to solve a problem, and then let and behold, people start to look at you as the solution, and
Yes.
the person who could facilitate a path forward, which is you didn't shy away from it, and so we thank you for
Thank
doing
you.
that. um I'm always blown away about how something that really started for you as just something for your boys, you wanted to protect them, and something that started off protection quickly became connection, and that connection became
Yes.
community. But building something rooted in pain, I imagine, isn't easy. Talk to me a little bit. Let's talk about building while carrying fear, right? Because I
Right.
know a lot of parents, they have that fear, like, well, is this safe space for my son or for my boys, and how
Right.
do I protect them and all that stuff? And it seems like that's what you're kind of doing. You're creating a safe spaces while carrying that fear and grief, and having honest conversations about it, like how tell people how to get through it
Yeah.
when they're carrying that fear, grief, and responsibility. And it's not just for your family, but others too. What are some of the emotional challenges that you see when holding these spaces for other mothers while
Wow.
navigating your own fears?
Yeah. So we have something called Mother to Mother. It's a mother to mother
Hmm.
chat. So every family that becomes part of our Kings has this chat with us. And it's so we can understand exactly what they're joining for or what they're looking for when they decide to join our Kings. And some of the stories that we hear are really horrific, because these aren't teenagers, these aren't grown men, these are babies. You know what I mean? We support, initially, we was like first grade to sixth grade. And so in the beginning, to hear these stories of, like, my son is getting called a nigger every day at school, or, you know,
Mm.
called a monkey or an ape and nobody wants to play with him, or if he touches the ball, the other kids say they can't play with that ball. Like, things that, you think of, like, not obviously not far a long time ago, but we always think we have come so far. And then that reality gets right back into your face, right? And unfortunately. So I think carrying the weight of hearing the stories, and then also knowing that my sons are going through the exact same thing, gives me the empathy for the families. And that's where that village comes in and that true community comes in. It's like, okay, we see each other and we understand each other, and we're really here to support and protect each other. And so it becomes, I think that's where that movement came. Like, people say, wow, this happened overnight, but it happened, I think, really because of those mother to mother chats. And we also support parents in that space of how to navigate that space and how to heal themselves so they can be there for their son. And we also have therapists that, if the sons need that as well, because a lot of these boys are going through trauma. And so we really support that whole circle moment for them, so they can, so boys can be children and the parents can guide them and be their advocate, so the boys don't have to worry about that. But carrying that as I'm dealing with it myself, with my kids going to school and being out there and being on teams, it's really it's healing for me because I know I'm not alone. And
Mhm.
sometimes when you realize that you're not alone and you're not crazy and what you're thinking is like, no, this is not just happening to my son, or I know that this shouldn't be happening to my son, but it is. When you're by yourself in that space, it can make you feel like you're going insane. But then when we have our mother to mother chats, or now our even we have a male show up where all the families can come together and have these honest conversations, it makes you say, okay, how can we support each other and guide this so it doesn't happen anymore? Or where's the voice? They learn their voice, you know. So
Mhm.
that's the part that's healing, is seeing the families come together and advocate for our
Yeah.
kids and know how to advocate the right way for our children.
Yeah. Were there ever moments when you felt overwhelmed or questioned whether you could keep going with this?
Understatement. Because just because again it started off with just a mom wanting a space for her children. I was never looking for the role of a leader, of an advocate, going up to schools and speaking to teachers and being in those rooms. That was never my thought process. I actually was a hairdresser, so so it was
Mm,
never like my go-to when I created this space. So those moments of being overwhelmed happen often, but the it's for a short period of time. It comes in
yeah.
like in a second, and then it's gone in a second because
Mhm.
I get phone calls every day like, hey, my son got an award, or hey, these things are happening to my son now. I really just appreciate the space you're creating. And so it makes me, the drive is there. And it literally has taken on a world of its own, of me no longer being like, how do I carry this space, into like, let's go
Mhm.
mode. You know what I mean? Like we're on,
Yeah.
we're on let's go mode right now.
Man. Every time I've seen you in a space, you're a beacon of shining light,
Oh, thank you.
and you're like, seem like you're the calm in the storm or the joy
Oh,
and so forth. And how do you process the weight of like seeing your sons and other boys, you know, begin to internalize fear so young, but still show up in the capacity that you do, that allows for everybody to be present in the moment? Like, how do you do that?
I don't know. I honor what you
So you got
say,
a
and
gift that just comes natural to you.
I embrace it, but inside I'm like, I'm always like taken back by everybody else because I'm in awe of the community, and I'm always grateful that I have been welcomed into this community. Um, but I kind of just say, here we go, like, and so the part of my children, I think one thing that we do at our Kings very well is allow boys to be children. They're not carrying the weight. So once they come, we really advocate African American history so they know where they come from and how powerful they are. And so those insecurities for them disappear quickly. Just being around other boys that look like them with the same hairstyles as them, all of that is the insecurity when you're not in a space that looks like you, which is why a lot of people go to HBCUs, right? They want that experience.
Hmm.
And so this is like an experience for the boys, being in this space. And so I can't walk in a room with no confidence if I'm telling them to walk in the room with confidence. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
it's like be one, teach one. And I see them shining because of this space, which gives me pride because Black boys are amazing. Black people are amazing, and so they have so much power and so much wisdom, and they're just kind and intelligent, noble, gifted, all of those things. And we really want them to understand their power. And we see them learning that and becoming that. It becomes natural to them. So I guess that's what
Yeah.
motivates me to walk into these spaces with that, what you say, like that beacon of light. Cause I'm like, oh my God, look at all these people in here. Here I go. But it's it's you know, it's nice to be in that space with the boys. They bring me a lot of joy.
I love that. I'm thinking about when you first, when your journey. So 2014 is when you first started, and I want to fast forward because I'm thinking about 2014 looked very different from 2020 because 2020 is when George Floyd, Black Lives Matter,
Yeah,
COVID, all that stuff, and then everybody went insular. And I'm curious, how did the events of 2020 push you from
a meetup to a
or
nonprofit.
yeah, yeah. How did that come about?
Yeah, so the families of the originally we was called Queens of Kings. And so
Okay.
those families, we all protested together. And go, goodbye. And what we quickly
Look at that. Look at
realized
that king. That king just wants to be in the podcast interview so
all
bad.
day long, I forgot to lock the door. um, I, I have five, so it's like a non, it's constant. But the the shift was everybody is one right now, and we quickly realized this is going to end. Like every good, unfortunately good moment, that that motivation kind of like starts to sink down. And so I just was up one night. I also found out we was having twins, and we was having two more boys, and
Oh
it just
wow.
felt like deja vu, right? Like for my family it felt like deja vu. So yes, we had our boys out there protesting and being part of the movement, but I didn't want it to end, and I wanted to make it more than this moment. And so that's when we officially turned it into a 501c3. My brother, who is my co-chair, he's my ride or die. He's beside me, and we both are in education. I said, "Can you do this with me?" And he said, "If we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it right." And he said, "Let's put some programs behind it. Let's make it make sense. Like we're gonna really make sure that these boys get what they deserve, and these families understand their power and how to advocate." And so that we sat down for a long time and made our programs, created the name Our Kings, because they're no longer just the mother's children. They're all our children's, and everybody should be responsible for them. Kings actually stands for kind, intelligent, noble, gifted sons of kings and queens. And the boys, they say that every time they're in presence with each other. And it gives them a natural confidence and power. We see saying,
Mm,
just saying those words to each other, saying those words out loud together. And we intentionally made it that because those are all the things that society tells our boys they're not. And so we
mhm.
really wanted them to feel strong. And so that's when it officially turned into a 501c3, and those programs happened. And we was just in 2023 was like, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And we was at every event, every function. We had a booth everywhere around San Diego, just letting people know that Our Kings is coming. And if you wanted to be part of the movement.
Nah, I love that. And if you're listening right now, and if you've ever built something out of pain, you're not alone. Out of a breaking point, Our Kings was reborn, not just as a space for meetup and community building, but as a structured movement, a 501c3 that has programs that are now moving our Kings forward, speaking life into power. And words have hold so much meaning. So I'm glad. I,
Man,
I love the acronym, right?
thank you.
That's just fueling me up. Just hearing it, I was like, oh, say it again.
Yeah, yeah,
All
yeah.
right. So we went from village to movement. Let's talk about what Art Kings looks like today, because this is more than just a play group now. What
Completely.
does so you told us Art Kings stand for kind, intelligent, noble, gifted sons of kings and queens.
Yes.
Love that.
Thank you.
Walk us through your programs. I think I saw on the website, and last time I spoke to you, you got Mommy and King,
Yeah.
King's Keeper,
There you go.
Kings to Kings. What are all
Hey.
these things? And
Yeah.
break it down for us.
Yeah. So, like I said earlier, we originally was like a second to fifth grade meetup group because that's where my boys were at in life. And as we built, we got calls from other moms and other ages. And so Mommy and Kings is essentially newborn, preschool, toddlers. And that space is for parents so they can understand. So we support parents in healthcare system, education system, and the justice system. The healthcare system is a big part of the preschool and toddler and newborn stage. And so in that space, we build, that's where we connect the village and we build the village.
Mhm.
We really go into how to support yourself and your son in that space of the healthcare, and knowing the right questions to ask the doctors, knowing your rights as a parent of an African American boy. And so we really support families in that space and give them that village and let them know that they're not alone while they're raising their son from the very beginning. And that is a meetup group where from the beginning they see themselves. So it's a story time, and they meet and they have music, arts and crafts, and story time. And it's all dedicated to the African American boy. So the books
Mhm.
are written by African Americans, or it has little black boys in the books, people of color. The music is our music, if it's from Africa to, um, Afro Afro Latino to hip hop to jazz. They're embracing their culture from a very young age. And then also the arts and crafts is all dedicated to us as well. So from the very beginning, they're learning who they are and they're very proud of themselves. And what's so cool about that space is like when we're reading the books, they're like, hey, that little boy looks like me, like when they're looking at the pictures. So right away we notice that this is something that is powerful for them, right? Because there's power in seeing yourself. And then you have King's King's Keepers, which is our core cohort, and that is elementary to seventh grade. And that's where that brotherhood really starts to connect. We do hands-on workshops in that class. We have male professionals come and guide and lead that class so they see themselves in that classroom, because many of our boys don't see themselves on campus. They don't have someone that reflects them on campus. So every week when they meet, they see a professional that's guiding them that is a black male, and it's a very powerful space for them. They also learn the history of whatever they're learning. So if we're learning about culinary, they learn about past chefs in our foods and soul foods and how it connects
Mhm.
and how it's powerful and how we sit around the table together, because we have always created a village with each other. So everything is always tied into who we are as people. And so that's just an example of one lesson that we teach, but it's a 9-month cohort. So it starts from September and it ends in May. And in that cohort, they learn brotherhood, leadership, and mentorship, and then also African American cultural pride so they can understand who they are. And then we have Kings to
Mhm.
Kings, and that is for eighth grade in high school. And that class is a lot more about entrepreneurship. It's a lot like the King's Keepers class. It's 9 months, exact same time frame, but it gets a little bit deeper in the conversations. They have something called the man cave in there. It's led by men,
Mhm.
where they can have that real honest conversation and connect with each other and get those answers that they might not be able to get at home. Even if they have a father at home, it just feels good to talk to someone that's, might not be judgmental or start looking down on you. You can feel safe in that space. And then we do entrepreneurship. So they have a whole guideline of how to build a business plan, how to present your business, the elevator pitch, um, how to create something from scratch. What field are you looking to go into? They learn about the finances of different fields and how powerful they are as Black males in those fields, and how powerful it is to have your own and support your own. So that's what that cohort's about. And that's also a 9-month cohort. And they also are,
Mhm.
each one is a big brother to the next one. So the Kings to Kings are big brothers to King's Keepers, and the King's Keepers are big brothers to the Mommy and King boys. So they're all supportive and understand that they're responsible for each other. And that's what builds that village.
I love that. Um, I, any program you want me to speak at, I'll come and speak at. But I'm curious about the one about the food and the culinary arts. Do we get to cook in that one?
Well,
Do we get
Louisiana
to?
Purchase has that down locked. They have that down locked.
Well, can some brothers pull up and sample whatever the culinary skills y'all doing up in there? Like, I love me some food, so
Yeah,
you ain't
it was a
don't
good
threaten me
time.
with a good time now.
Yeah, it's funny. Every parent wanted to volunteer in that space when we went there. Every parent. Yeah.
I was like, ooh, I hope she invite me to the culinary one because
Yeah.
I want to mix it up and taste some food and
Yeah.
get
It was really
get it
cool.
cracking.
They got to learn how to create a menu. They did some tasting. They learned what the front of the house was, the back of the house, the finances of holding down a restaurant. Like, yeah, it's all glitz and glam, but it's a lot of work. And so, I mean, everything is tied into like the reality of that space. And so it was really cool for them to
Yeah.
see that.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. So, how do these programs support not just the boys but the parents and caregivers too?
Hmm. Yeah. So, one, parents have to volunteer. They have to show up.
Okay.
We're not a pick up and drop off organization at all. You're
Okay.
part of the village, you know? And so with that, if we're doing something in, let's say, music, if we're learning about the music of our people, they also have a workshop or a Zoom that kind of guides them in that space on how to support their son if that's something that their son has gravitated to, you know, and how to understand what that looks like for their son in that space. So
Mhm.
each workshop supports the parents in that space, and so they can understand how to support their son in that space.
I love that. Anya, you out here doing legacy work.
Thank you.
And yeah, you're welcome. And I think that legacy requires the wisdom that you're bringing these people together that's helping us move um, us forward. And
Thank
so
you.
thank you for the
I
work you're doing.
appreciate that.
All right. Well, let's talk about raising kings in a world that tests them.
Hmm.
Looking back on this journey, um, what lessons rise to the surface for you?
What lessons rise for me while I'm raising my sons?
Yeah, just the journey on uh, building this program for young kings and knowing the things that these young kings go through in the world that test them. What are some lessons you've learned about building a program and a system in place that supports these young kings on the journey? What have you learned along the way? And maybe some of it might be personal learning, just
Yeah.
things with your own boys and working through with them to get them forward in the
I,
world
I, I've,
that's
I've
always
learned,
constantly testing them.
yeah, I've learned that they have a lot of weight. A lot of pressure
Mm,
is on them as children. Just to walk home is, you know, a scary place for them. And, it's really tough as a parent, right? Because they're our child. And so when they come home, they have all these things that they're responsible for, like maybe taking out the trash or doing the dishes, cleaning their room. But sometimes I've learned that they've had a really hard day. They've had a really hard day trying to prove that they're not the troublemaker in the class, or like even amongst friends, colorism, like they've had a lot of stuff has been already piled on them when they leave the house. And so as a parent, I have to realize sometimes I just need to take a step back and say, are you okay? Is everything all right? Ask those questions. A lot of times we go, how was your day? And they go, it was okay. But sometimes we have to dive in deeper to see what's really under the surface, because walking home for them is scary. Being in the classroom is scary. The paper trail is real, the pipeline to prison is real. And so, and it starts very young. It starts very, very young.
mhm.
And it's just, it's the weight that's on them is, it's unbelievable what the
Yeah,
society has done to our boys. And so
yeah.
and it's everything is like toughen up, be a man, suck it up. And we have to let them know that it's okay to cry. We have to let them know it's okay to feel. We have to let them know that we're here for them as parents. And we have to give them grace. We have to give our boys grace. We have to give them grace. So for me
Yeah,
as a
that's real.
parent, that's what I have learned in this space of these boys,
Mhm.
even some boys that aren't mines, but they are mines, like boys in the programs. They come and they're not themselves. And so I start talking to them and they had a bad week at school. You know what I mean? Somebody made fun of them or was teasing them, and they have to stick up for themselves all the time. So it's like, it's really, we have to give our boys grace.
Yeah, thank you for that. And really painting that picture for us, because I think this is probably why you get so many moms and parents that are coming from many different cultures who are raising Black boys, because they're finally like they're getting the real dose in real time what it truly means to raise a Black boy in today's world. And I'm thinking even on my own journey of becoming a man, and the things that I navigated as a young man that I deemed as normal, which are not normal things to have to navigate in the world. But I didn't know that then, and now, and trying to navigate that and taking all the responsibility at a young age, and not being able just to play and be yourself.
Yeah.
When you're trying to navigate the all the systems, the school system, the education system, the healthcare system, whatever it is, and how do you advocate for yourself, and when you don't really have a voice, or your voice is being stripped away from you, or
Right.
even just a walk in the community, right? Like, we're raising our young men to, oh, don't be soft, toughen up, and you know don't cry, I'm gonna give you something to cry about. These
Yeah.
things start to weigh, and then we start to hold all these things inside, because we feel like, okay, we can't do this, we can't do that, so what can I do, right? The
Right.
only
What
thing I
can I
can
do?
do is be
Yeah. What am I
is
allowed to do? What am I allowed to feel right now?
hmm and we don't learn how to process emotion in a healthy way, because of societal pressures, at home pressures, um, you know, uh, looking at, if daddy's not in the household, and then I'm with a mom who's a single parent, I'm having to fulfill two roles. I'm
Yeah.
fulfilling the son role, and I'm fulfilling
The
the man
husband
of the
role.
house role.
Yeah. I call it the man of the house syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a real thing because you're responsible, and if you have siblings, you're responsible for your siblings, right? And so you're responsible for your
Yeah.
siblings. You no longer can be a child. You're worried about your mom's well-being, and naturally, without even thinking about it, she does that to you. She's talking to you as if you're her spouse when you're her son, and it carries on with you throughout life, and you almost don't even know how to be in a relationship because you feel like you're like cheating on your mom. You know what I mean? Because your mom
Mm-hmm.
has always been your priority, and you realize, wait, now I have a wife and I have my own person, and how do I navigate these two worlds, and how do I show up for my family when all my life I've been responsible for this family? It's a lot for boys, and it happens a lot. It happens more often,
Mm-hmm.
even if you don't say that. I know back in the day they used to say that all the time, like, you're the man of the house, you're the man of the house now. They don't really say that no more, but it's naturally put on that child. And as a son, you naturally feel like, I need to protect my mom and my siblings.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Real talk. That's a whole nother podcast
Whole
episode
nother
you about to
yeah.
launch there.
It's a real thing. Yes, yes.
Ouais. What advice would you give to, or do you have for parents who feel afraid but don't know where to turn? Because like these are tough conversations to have with your young king, especially if I'm a let's say if I'm a mom who is from a different race, right?
Mhm.
And I don't know how to have this conversation with my Black son, because I don't have those experiences, right? And I want to hold space for them, but it's going to be hard to navigate that conversation. Um, one, just because gender,
Yeah,
you're a female, I'm a male, and then
right.
two, you layer on the identity of what you probably navigate in your life versus I navigate, and there has to be some level set of understanding, there, and so when a young king's in pain and they don't have all the words to verbalize how they're feeling because they've never been taught to really
Yeah.
unpack their emotions, it's going to be hard for me to take another step back to help you to understand the thing first and then my emotions second. So
Yeah.
what advice do you have for parents who feel afraid and don't know where to
Yeah.
turn?
That's a good question. So we actually start every workshop with some kind of meditation, whether it's art therapy, journaling, taking breaths, something to let that go and be in the space. And I think a lot of times at home, we don't do that. We're go, 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 right? And so I think creating that space with your boys, your as a family, where you can breathe in and breathe out and let everything go before you have those conversations is a good idea. But also having someone that can mediate those conversations, just because if you are a woman trying to have that with your son is hard naturally. But if you have a household that has a full circle with the father, the mom and the sons, it's good to sit down and have those conversations, those authentic conversations in real time, and come with no judgment, you know. Allow him to say what he needs to say, and have that talk without it being you judging him, you know, or like it's not really that bad, or are you, you know, like the things that you would say where you don't realize you're shutting him down immediately.
Yeah.
Another good thing that I do with my sons personally is we write things down, and so we write them down and we put them in a bowl and we kind of just read them, and then we elaborate on that question, that topic, whatever that may be. So, because sometimes it's just hard to get the words out, you know? Sometimes it's just really hard to say it. And so when you're writing it, you don't feel as judged, and you don't, it's almost like a safe space. And so it's some, you know, we have those, what do they call them? Twitter thumbs or whatever. People are real quick to,
20 fingers.
yeah, yeah, yeah. People are real quick to just use those thumbs. And it's the same thing with writing it instead of saying it in your family, you know? And, you know, like, so it's like, hey, and sometimes as parents, it's okay to recognize that we don't have the answers, but let's find a way to get the answers. And I think that's the first acknowledgement as the parents. And then as a child, the first knowledge is understanding that you do have questions and you do have some kind of pain there, maybe, or you do have weight put on you, or it isn't, you might feel like it's not fair. And it's okay to feel those things. And this is a safe space for us to have that conversation. I think always acknowledging that it's a safe space for you. Safe space for you is very important for them to feel that.
Yeah. What does belonging look like for Black boys, and why is it a
Mm.
non-negotiable?
For me, it's non negotiable because I have Black sons. And so they should always feel like they belong, no matter what space they're in. If they're getting in trouble for walking to the bathroom, that other kid better get in trouble for walking to the bathroom too. Right. And so belonging for my sons is feeling comfortable. My son plays One of my sons plays baseball. He's the only African American boy on the team. Everybody else is Hispanic. What I did for him to feel like he belongs in that space and he should be in that space is he's been in a dual immersion program. I realized early on that he loved baseball, and I knew it was a sport, especially where we live, where most people that play it are Hispanic. So you're not going to start speaking Spanish around him where he doesn't understand. So let me put him in this so he understands and he belongs. You know, like belonging is giving your son that opportunity to be there. And belonging for society is allowing them to be there with no judgment.
Mm, I like that. Allowing to them to be there with no judgment. And if we could put that more in practice, I think we would
Man,
be better off as a society.
no,
That's a bar for
don't
parents.
expect nothing different from him than you do from the other child.
Yeah, yeah, I like that.
So if everybody's on
So
an
to my
excellence, then that's what it is. Everybody should have that excellence. If everybody's starting at F, everybody better get an F. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
keep it equal. Keep it equal.
Yeah, man, keep it equal. To all my listeners out there, if you're listening to this, those some bars right there. And
Thank you.
we're learning, how do you create these spaces? And I want you to ask yourselves, how am I helping to protect, kids in my community? Whether it's creating safe spaces like this, making sure that everybody has an equal opportunity and not, treating one kid different from the other. Um, and what programs are in your neighborhood that allows for the immersion of different cultures and people to feel like they belong, and how do you create spaces that belong? So this is some things to sit with, and I think we've got all the tools in the playbook right here. So if you don't have our kings in your neighborhood, you should be shouting from the hilltop saying, how could we get our kings to the neighborhood and the community? Well, speaking of that, like, because you've got a couple of community leaders and entrepreneurs that's invested. How can entrepreneurs, donors, and community leaders support movements like our Kings,
Yeah.
authentically? Because we don't want to just do it for show. We want it to be the
Right.
authentic connection there.
Yeah, we're about that village, so it's for real with
Yeah.
us. But that our website is always a good start. Um, on our website, we have where you can volunteer, we have where you can donate, we have where you can come and be a guest speaker, even just join our events. We do a lot of events because we believe in celebrating our boys on a regular. So,
Hmm.
just showing up at those and saying, here, I'm here for you, is always amazing. Our website is a really good place to start. Also, you can always email us at info@ourkings.org, and
Hmm.
we connect right there. A lot of people connect with us through our social media. Our Kings, a
Hmm.
nonprofit, is another space where you can connect with us. We're around, so if you want to
They're around,
support,
ladies and gentlemen.
yeah, we're around Dago. So if you want to support, we're here. We're here for it. We're all about it.
So if you in Dago, you ain't got no choice. We outside.
We are San
So
Diego for those that don't know.
oh yeah, well, they don't know the lingo. They ain't from around here. So
Right, right,
San Diego
right.
is Dago. For those that don't know, but before we close it, I mean, you dropped everything, the website and so forth. Let's talk about how people can become part of the movement, because I feel like this is our responsibility too. So not just the entrepreneurs and so forth that we told, but anybody who has the heart, the courage, the will, the strength, the
Passion.
the the action that they want to get
Yeah.
behind it. And I thank you for your courage and your
Thank
vulnerability and your
you.
leadership. And just tell them the pathways where people can learn more about our king, support the work, and get involved. I know you already told me what I need to do. I gotta come to pull up and do a
Yeah.
workshop. I'm gonna be there. You just tell me when.
Got
But
you.
if somebody's not me talking to you, where can they pull up to do a workshop, volunteer, look at the programs, get their kids signed in,
Yeah.
memberships, all the ways to engage. Give it to them all.
Yeah, yeah. So we actually just closed our wait list for the new cohort. We put it out 2 weeks ago. I'm very proud to say that we have over 60 boys that have signed up for that. So that is closed, ladies and gentlemen. Right? We was not expecting that, but we are just overwhelmed with joy. And then we're also in school districts with an after school program. If you want to get your boys involved in our program, so you can always see what school districts we're in. We're in Lemon Grove this next year, Lemon Grove, Santee, and then San Diego school districts. And if you talk to your teachers and stuff and say, "Hey, we want this program," they'll make it happen. And that's kind of like how everything has been word of mouth for us so far. So we're very blessed in that
Mhm.
way. If you're wanting to do a workshop with us or just support, we actually have a hats and bow tie brunch coming up, and this is something where we celebrate the boys. This is a great way to see what the community is about and how it looks and what we're building. That's going to be on May 23rd, and our tickets are sold on Eventbrite for that. And
Mhm.
so it's a great way to connect with us. But you can always contact us at info@ourkings.org. Alexandria is our administrative assistant. She is amazing. She gets back to you right away and she makes it happen. So if you're truly interested, that is the way to start. Info@ourkings.org. And Alexandra will hit you up. Say, what up?
Yeah. And make sure y'all pull up to that event May 23rd if you in
Yes.
Dago. Let's make sure that event sells out along with all other things that
We do a
she keeps
lot.
putting out here. Yeah, we do a lot. We do a
Yeah.
lot, but we give a lot too. So
Yes.
let's keep on giving and pouring into my sis.
Thank you.
Um Anya, this has been a pleasure. Family, this isn't
Always.
just a nonprofit, it's a call to action. So make
Thank
sure y'all
you.
go over there. Visit ourkings.org, support the programs, and
Yes.
share this episode with someone who's raising or loving on a young king out there. Subscribe to Rise Urban Nation, leave us a review, and join us next time as we continue to rise together. Peace, love, and blessings, y'all.